Hey guys, RanterInShades here, exercising my first amendment rights vlog style. And what I'm going to be talking about today is something that is mostly associated with classic rock elitists, but they certainly are not the only ones guilty of this. It's when hard rock is held as being the be-all, end-all of what rock music is. Don't get me wrong, hard rock's awesome. Some of my favorite music falls under hard rock, but the hype that's placed on hard rock tends to take it to a point where it gets synonymous with rock music in general. So when a band comes out that's doing something a little differently, whether it be by including more pop elements or indie elements or even some electronic parts, you see people going as far as to say, this isn't rock. Not rock? What? I'm sorry, but being a rock band doesn't mean sounding like Guns N' Roses or sounding like Kiss or Aerosmith. Good bands, don't get me wrong, but when I think of a rock band, I think of a group of at least 3 people that includes a guitarist, a bassist, and a drummer. You might have a second guitarist or a keyboardist, and more often than not there's a vocalist, unless you're an instrumental band. Those are the basic ingredients of a rock band, or a metal band, or even a jazz band. But since we're talking about rock, which is pretty much a giant umbrella term, these are the instruments that readily come to mind that are associated with rock bands. Now, do hard rock bands come to mind first when I think of rock bands? Sure, but that doesn't make any other rock genre any less rock. Pop rock artists like Elton John, Billy Joel, or some more current examples like Paris and Runner Runner are still considered rock artists since they use instruments that are associated with rock music and write in a similar general style that's traditionally associated with rock. The same applies to new wave bands like The Cure, The Cars, Depeche Mode, Duran Duran, and Oingo Boingo. Bands in this genre might be a bit synth-heavy at times, but since when was synth not a rock instrument? Have hard rock bands not used that instrument before? Because I'm pretty sure bands like Rush, Deep Purple, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Yes, Journey, and others have used synth in their music, and no one's went out of their way to say that they're not rock, and I dare someone to try to make the case otherwise. Same with metal. I also really hate it when the stigma is tossed at alternative rock, that it's pussified or watered down rock music just because it doesn't sound like 70s, 80s hard rock. Whether we're talking about old or new Linkin Park, Maroon 5, Matchbox 20, Florence and the Machine, Phoenix, bands like those that have a bit of a poppy appeal, but not to the point where it sounds super crazy poppy, to which I just call them pop rock. But most of the people that call alternative rock or post-grunge pussified or watered down are pretty much your run-of-the-mill classic rock elitists that think that anything that came out after the early 90s is shit. At the end of the day, they're still rock bands. There is so much more to rock music than just hard rock, let alone 70s, 80s hard rock. What about progressive rock or math rock? What about ska, which incorporates wind instruments? What about rap rock, which utilizes the traditional band components just with the vocals being rapped rather than sung? There are a shit ton of possibilities here. And when it comes to rock bands, as long as a band fits in this general context, how are they not rock? You don't have to be a fan of these styles, and you can continue to live in your classic rock bubble, but to call any band outside the 70s, 80s rock realm not rock is just straight up blasphemy. Over the 60 plus years of rock's existence, rock has changed and evolved. Countless genres and subgenres have been experimented with. And because this continues to happen and the music continues to get made, regardless of how popular it might be on the charts, that makes for the biggest case as to how rock is not dead like Gene Simmons thinks. And as different as these genres and subgenres might be from one another, at the end of the day, they all fall under the almighty umbrella that is
rock and roll!
Rock and or roll.
Rock and fucking roll, motherfucker! These days, the kind of rock music that you hear getting played on hit radio is the indie style stuff like Walk the Moon, Imagine Dragons, 21 Pilots, and groups like those. I might not be the biggest indie guy out there, but like I've said in videos before, I'm glad rock is getting played in the pop world. I still find these kinds of bands to be enjoyable on a certain level, and I'd certainly rather listen to them than most artists on hit radio. And it's not like rock stopped being popular or commercial, it always was and still is. Like I said, it's evolved over the past few decades. Grunge, alternative, nu metal, post-grunge, pop-punk, and post-hardcore have all had artists reach star status worldwide in the 90s and 2000s. Sure, they're not 70s, 80s arena rock or glam metal or AOR, but are they rock genres or subgenres? Fuck yeah! And of course, we've also seen throwback artists come to prominence as well. So again, it's not like these older styles of rock just up and stopped being made. To think otherwise is just silly. This is of course why I hate saying a genre either died or fizzled out. Either way, even if indie style rock isn't necessarily my favorite kind of music out there, I'm glad it's popular. Would I like heavier music to be big on the radio and charts again? Yeah, I'd be lying if I said I didn't. But until we get to that point, I'm perfectly fine with bands like Walk the Moon, Imagine Dragons, and 21 Pilots being in the spotlight. And I'm not going to be an old fag that's so bitter about the fact that it's not the 80s anymore that I make some kind of claim that they're not rock. Is hard rock great music? Most certainly. Is classic rock from the 60s, 70s, and 80s good music? Of course. As much as my taste has shifted a bit to where most of my favorite artists these days are progressive metal and rock, punk, alternative metal, and instrumental guitarists, classic rock and hard rock are still things I hold on to and cherish. But are they the be-all end-all of what rock music is, let alone good rock music? No. And to act like they are is really close-minded. Thank you for watching this video, take care, and have a nice day. I'm Shades, and I'll see you next time.